Hi everyone, Kim here at Olive City Homestead. Welcome to my channel and welcome to tea time. You know, I'm a coffee drinker and an iced tea drinker, but the one time I really enjoy and benefit from hot tea, hot herbal tea, is when I'm not feeling well. If you watched my last video, you saw that I have been dealing with a cold of some sort for quite a while now, and I had no voice at all in my last video. I do have a voice again, thankfully, but I'm still dealing with some symptoms, including a cough. In today's video, I want to share with you an herbal tea that can greatly help you if you are dealing with a cough, and that is chamomile tea. And chamomile tea can help you with many other things as well, including something I can almost guarantee you've not heard and that I'm pretty excited about. So come with me out into the garden area where it's an overcast day and the wind is kind of blowing, but still you'll see all the volunteer chamomile I've got going on right now. And I will share with you how easy chamomile is to grow and all the many benefits it can bring into your life. So let's get on out there now and then come back here and enjoy some tea. At the end of the video, I'll share 2 recipes with you that I think you will really enjoy because I know I have and I know how much they've helped me too.
So last year, I planted some German chamomile in my herb garden, just one little plant, and I also planted another German chamomile in a little container on my patio garden. And I really enjoyed the beauty of them, and I enjoyed having tea from them. I didn't get around to planting more German chamomile this year, but that was not a problem because as you can see here, I have volunteer chamomile. This is just one of many plants that have come up for me. None in my beds. They're actually far from where the original plants were. But that is something German chamomile does quite well. Self-seeds. And it's not an issue of being invasive. They're very easy to pull up. It is a great benefit to German chamomile that basically once you've planted it, you really don't need to ever plant it again as long as you let some of it go to seed. Now, as you can see here, most of the blooms on this plant, you're just seeing the yellow ball, and then the white petals are still downward facing. They're not open to the sun. Well, there's really not much sun today. It's pretty overcast. It's supposed to start raining. There are some that are starting to open, but this is what German chamomile does. As the sun comes up in the morning, the white petals slowly unfurl upwards, kind of like the rays of a sun. Now, you can harvest chamomile pretty much any time, but the best time to harvest it is in the morning after the leaves have fully unfurled, so definitely not yet for this plant. And that is because you want all the dew to have dried off the flowers before you harvest it. It's not essential. If you were to dry them immediately after picking them, even if they had a little dew on them, that would be okay. You just don't want to leave them sitting around with any kind of moisture on them because they could mildew. However, you don't want to wait too long in the day to harvest them because these flowers are sensitive to the sun, and you want to harvest them before the sun's been beating down on them for hours. Now, that brings me to, where does chamomile grow best? Well, clearly it seeds itself all over, but it does prefer morning sun and afternoon shade. So these volunteer plants, which are not growing in spots that get afternoon shade, won't be doing so well here in a month or two when I have my 100 to 115 degree Fahrenheit afternoons. Now, I could move them, but see, I've waited too long, really. Transplanting your volunteer chamomiles is doable, but you should do it when your plants are only 2 to 4 inches high. They don't have a deep taproot, say like borage. They have shallow roots, but very few plants like to be disturbed once they're in full maturity and full bloom. So yes, these plants are growing just fine amongst the grasses and weeds here behind my main garden. But when the summer heat kicks in June, they won't do so well. They'll die off. However, they will be, of course, self-seeding everywhere because I will let them go to seed. Next year, though, I plan to carefully watch for them and dig them up and transplant them to areas where they'll grow better throughout the summer, where they're going to get afternoon shade in June, July, and August. And that way I can have ongoing chamomile throughout the whole hot summer. Another volunteer chamomile plant here. This one right next to my pepper bed last year, where now I have borage volunteering everywhere and some Egyptian walking onions I definitely need to go through and clean up. They're so cool. Look at those onions walking. So why would we want to keep chamomile growing all summer long? What is so great about chamomile? What are some of the many benefits to it? Well, I'm sure that most of you have heard of chamomile tea and how it helps people sleep. If you have a sleep issue, if you've got insomnia, if you're just stressed about work or something and keeping you up at nights, many people have heard that chamomile tea will soothe you and calm you and help you fall asleep. And that is true. Chamomile tea is great for inducing sleep. It is a very calming tea, but there's so much more to the benefits of chamomile than that. Chamomile is antibacterial, anti-microbial, anti-fungal, and anti-inflammatory. Did you know, though, that it's also anti-spasmodic? And this has had great appeal to me recently because I have my voice back now, but I have been dealing with a intermittent hacking cough for over a week now. And combining that with a chest muscle injury I have right now, it is not a good thing at all. And I really needed something to combat or to soothe, to tame this hacking cough. And I thought, chamomile tea. It is anti-spasmodic. It's going to help those chest muscles to calm down, those lungs to calm down, and hopefully send those coughing spasms away. Or at least lessen them greatly. And the great news is that it has worked. Something that a lot of people don't realize about chamomile that I was extremely excited to find out is that it also triggers osteoblasts, one of the 3 cells that helps to build bone mass in your body, to start building bone. So this is also a great plant for those of us that have bone issues like osteoporosis. So while you're helping yourself to calm down, helping your muscles to stop spasming, helping yourself de-stress, you can also be building your bones. Now I know that I said it would be a good idea to transplant these since they're mature plants at this point, but what have I got to lose? I have so many of the volunteer plants, I don't think that it's too big of a risk to dig one up and try planting it in a pot, so let's do it. Again, they're shallow rooted and it's up. Let's go transplant this chamomile plant and see if we can keep it alive. Well, here that big bush is. It's in the pot. Very shallow root system again. Nothing like some of the deep tap-rooted herbs like borage. So that's good in the sense that it's easier to transplant, but bad in the sense that it's harder for it to take hold when it's got this level of growth above the roots, which is why it's much better to transplant when it's very small. But like I said, nothing risked, nothing gained, so we're going to give it a try. All right, so I went ahead and pulled up a few tiny little chamomile plants that were growing in the cracks of my back patio sidewalk. These will probably not make it because they had very little roots because I had to pull them out of the cracks. Just those roots. But, you never win if you don't try. This little one has a few more roots. All right, there they are. This spot does get afternoon shade, and the plants planted in these cement blocks will dry out if I'm not really careful to water them regularly, and chamomile actually prefers less water, so they should like that. Yes, in fact, chamomile are quite drought tolerant and really only require about, an inch of rain a week. So, equated to hand watering or drip line, that's very little. Now, when you're first growing them from seed, or if they're a couple inch tall transplant that you're planting out in your garden, they need a little more water then. But after they're established, yeah, they don't need much water at all. In fact, overwatering is one of the few things that will kill chamomile. So chamomile tea can be made many ways. You can make it with just straight chamomile flowers. You don't use the leaves or the stems for tea. They tend to be bitter. Just use the flowers. And you can harvest the flowers by snipping them with scissors just beneath the flower bulb. But the easiest way to harvest is to simply take your fingers and bring them up the stem, right up to the flower, and pop the little flowers right off. You'll have all these little yellow balls with white petals, and you can make the tea with fresh chamomile flowers or dried. Most people are used to drying their herbs, but the question does come up, can you make the tea with fresh herbs? You certainly can. Like most herbs, the flavor is much stronger once they're dried. So if you're using fresh herbs, like I did this week to make my tea, you should definitely use about twice as much as you would otherwise. So for my cup of chamomile tea, I would use about 2 teaspoons of fresh flowers or a teaspoon of dried flowers. But there's no hard and set rule. It's really to your own taste. If you want a stronger flavor, use more. Weaker flavor, use less. And you can vary it greatly by adding different herbs in. Apple mint is an interesting flavor to add because a lot of people think that chamomile has a slight apple flavor to it itself. What I did, though, was something a bit different.
So if you stuck with me this long, let's make some chamomile tea. Now, I did mention that you can add in other things like mint, sparingly because mint is really strong. But other things that go well with chamomile would be, say, borage. Basil would be great. And lemon balm or lemon verbena or some lemongrass, anything lemon flavored would be a nice accent with chamomile. But I stuck with plain chamomile this past week, and it all alone has a wonderfully sweet kind of apple, kind of fruity flavor. That was great. And now I did add 2 things into it that I think just were a perfect touch. They really hit the mark as far as flavor, but also as far as texture goes. When you want something soothing for your throat and all the way down through your chest. So here's what I did and what you can do too. Now I brew my tea in a dispenser like this, which works real well in a deep cup or can sit right in a small teacup like this one. This also can sit right inside a teapot if you're making a full pot of tea. Most of the time I'm alone though when I'm enjoying my tea, and I prefer to make it 1 cup at a time so it's just the right temperature and just the right strength, because the great thing about making your own tea rather than using tea bags that you buy at the store is that you can determine how strong you want it, and I tend to like it stronger than it typically comes. So I'm just going to put my chamomile in my steeper now. I'm going to pour my water in first, but you can put the steeper in and then pour the water in. The hard part, if you can call it that, is done, and now we just wait while tea steeps. Isn't this a pretty teapot? I like to collect teapots as well as teacups and saucers at thrift stores whenever I see, well, beautiful ones or interesting ones, and I just love the little robin sitting on top of this one. Now, how long should you let your tea steep for? Again, totally your decision. 4 to 7 minutes usually works, but try it at 3 and see what you think. I usually go toward the end, 7, even 8 minutes sometimes, again, because I like strong tea. And the 2 ways you can affect how strong your tea tastes is one, how much ingredients you put in, and two, how long you steep it. Now, being frugal, I like to use the least ingredients I need to get the best flavor that I want. So I use less in it and I use more time to steep it. I've even been known to steep things twice. I think it's ready now. As I said, you can drink it straight. It still tastes beautiful. Oh, that is so delicious. And right away, soothing. Now, chamomile tea is a pale golden color. It will be a little darker the longer you steep it. We're going to add some things to it though, just 2 things. They make a big difference in the taste and in the texture. The first thing we're going to add is some honey, a macadamia nut blossom honey. I found this honey to be just so aromatic and delicious. You can use just a little or a little more. It's up to you. I'm really not a big honey person. However, when it comes to tea, especially when you're sick, it really does make a big difference. So I'm using about a teaspoon right into my tea. And the heat of the water is going to dissolve that. I'm going to stir it a little bit though. You do want hot tea. However, with chamomile, because the flowers are rather delicate, you don't want your water to be, say, a rolling boil. That might disintegrate your flowers a bit. I mean, it doesn't really matter so much because they're in the steeper, so they're contained. But I think that it does a better job of preserving the flavor if you just have a very hot water right as it comes to a boil. All right, that honey is nice and dissolved now. And the last ingredient is some cinnamon. I'm just going to sprinkle that on top. Time to taste the masterpiece. Wow, that is so good. Every time I have it, I'm surprised at how good it is. It really is soothing to my chest muscles as well as to my whole throat all the way down. Now I told you I was going to give you 2 recipes, and the other one is the same tea, however, with one more addition, and that is some warm almond milk. If you take some almond milk and warm it up really well and add it to this, it's sort of like a herbal latte, and it's pretty fantastic, I have to say. So you have a variety of choices there. In fact, now that I think about it, I could have a third alternative. I could add the almond milk and I could put the whole thing on ice and have an iced latte, an iced chamomile honey cinnamon latte. Sounds good. I think I'm trying it when the sun comes back out. Meanwhile, it's supposed to be raining the next 3 days, and I cannot complain. All those seeds I put in the garden would probably love some real honest rain, and maybe they'll sprout before my garden tour. I am doing a garden tour as soon as the rain leaves, so maybe this coming weekend will be the plan. And maybe then I'll have some of that iced chamomile honey cinnamon latte to share with you. Meanwhile, I'm going to enjoy the hot version, and hopefully also by then the cough will be gone and I'll be back to full strength. So thanks for joining me today, everyone. I hope that wherever you are, you're in good health, and if not, make some chamomile tea. It's bound to help, and you will enjoy it. Remember, you can create the life you want. So why not start right now? See you next time, folks.